Sometimes life shifts in a single heartbeat. One moment you think you're drowning, and in the next, a hand you never expected reaches through the darkness. In a bright, sterile hospital room where worry clung to the air like a heavy fog, a woman stared at the man standing before her, a medic with tired eyes and a small bandage on his arm, still wearing yesterday's exhaustion. His jaw clenched, his knuckles pale against the metal case he held. He was a stranger, yet something about him felt like hope she was terrified to trust. Before we go deeper into this life-changing story, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Heartland Heroes if you believe kindness and second chances still exist in this world. Your support helps us keep telling these powerful stories. Aidan Mercer never imagined his life would become a series of close calls, emotionally, financially, and physically. Once the heir to a modest but growing tech startup, his world shattered when his partner stole everything, leaving him bankrupt overnight. As if that wasn't enough, his wife, Nina, passed away shortly after giving birth to their daughter, Hannah. Aidan became a single parent before he even knew how to carry his own grief. Every day since had been a struggle to hold himself together long enough to keep Hannah smiling that he found work where he could, doing medical support for private clients, temporary shifts, anything that kept food on the table. Every morning he woke up praying his strength would stretch just a little further. And every night he fell asleep telling his daughter that tomorrow would be better, but hope was fragile, almost too fragile that on a bright afternoon that felt strangely muted by tension, Aidan was called to an emergency assignment at a private hospital. He rushed in, still catching his breath, carrying the equipment he always kept ready for sudden cases. He didn't expect the person in the hospital bed to be her, Ilara Voss, the intimidating and brilliant CEO who had once offered to fund his startup. The same CEO he had turned down, the same person who unknowingly could have changed his life before everything collapsed. Ilara, usually powerful and immovable like a fortress, was now pale and trembling beneath hospital sheets. Her heart monitor beeped unevenly, each sound echoing like fear. Aidan noticed her breaths were shallow, panic flickering in her eyes as she clutched her chest through a white hospital gown. She was trying to maintain composure, but her body betrayed her. Ilara Voss, the woman who commanded corporate empires, whispered words filled with vulnerability no one in a boardroom would ever hear. "Please, just make it fast." She expected indifference, a clinical response, maybe even judgment. Aidan instead placed his case down gently and removed his jacket, revealing a small tattoo on his arm, Medic, inked with pride in his younger days when he thought the world was kinder. He moved closer, his voice calm, his presence strong enough to soften the edges of fear. In that moment, Ilara didn't see a struggling single father. She saw someone who showed up when she needed help the most. Aidan worked quickly, analyzing her condition with trained intuition. He realized her emergency wasn't physical, it was a panic attack brought on by severe exhaustion and untreated anxiety. But adrenaline doesn't always bow to logic, and fear doesn't listen to reason. He guided her breathing, kept his voice steady, and placed a supportive hand near hers, not touching, but close enough to let her know she wasn't alone. Slowly, her heartbeat began to calm, the monitor returning to a steady rhythm. Ilara blinked away tears she didn't want anyone to notice. She was someone used to holding the whole world on her shoulders, yet here she was struggling to hold herself up. Aidan recognized that pain. He carried it every day. For a few minutes, silence filled the room, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was healing. A soft knock interrupted them. Hannah, Aidan's little girl, peeked from the doorway with wide hazel eyes and her favorite worn-out teddy bear. She had insisted on waiting in the hallway but couldn't sit still any longer. When she saw her father wasn't hurt, she rushed in and wrapped her tiny arms around him. She whispered something about being worried, and Aidan lifted her gently, resting his cheek on her hair like she was the one keeping him alive. Ilara watched that moment, her gaze softening even further. She saw love, unfiltered, raw, and real. And she realized how long it had been since she had felt anything like that. The hospital staff soon took over, ensuring Ilara was stable. But she refused to let Aidan leave. She asked about his work, his life, why he looked so tired. When she learned his story, how he lost everything, how he refused to give up because Hannah needed him, her fingers tightened around the blanket like she was gripping the edges of regret. She remembered when he declined her help years ago. Back then she admired him for wanting to build something on his own. Now, she only felt guilt that she hadn't insisted harder. The sun streamed through the room's curtains as if intentionally illuminating them all in softer light. Elara confessed she hadn't slept in days. Stress had eaten away at her health because she believed weakness wasn't an option. She built walls so high that no one could reach her, until Aiden somehow climbed them without trying. As he packed his equipment, ready to move to his next shift, Elara spoke, hesitant, emotional. She wanted to make things right. Elara arranged a business meeting the very next day. Not in a conference room, but in a cozy cafe near the hospital, neutral ground. Aiden showed up with Hannah holding his hand, her braids slightly messy, her smile shy but curious. Elara had a folder ready, one that detailed a plan to revive Aiden's tech company, this time with safeguards, legal protections, and capital that couldn't be ripped away again. Aiden was speechless. He didn't ask for her help. He didn't think anyone like her would ever look at him with anything but pity or dismissal. But she wasn't doing this for charity. She was doing it because she believed in him. Because in the moment she thought her world was collapsing, he held her steady without expecting anything in return. Better days came slowly but steadily. Aiden regained confidence, his late nights spent designing and rebuilding the dream he had once buried. Elara visited often, sometimes professionally, sometimes not. Hannah adored her, and Elara found comfort in being around a child who loved without conditions. One evening, weeks later, Hannah asked if Elara could stay for dinner. She had drawn a picture where the three of them were standing together holding hands under a bright sun. Aiden felt something shift in his heart, a cautious hope blooming again. Elara smiled at the drawing, tears sparkling in her eyes. She realized she not only wanted Aiden to succeed, she wanted him in her life. And she wanted to be in his. Aiden, in turn, saw that behind Elara's power was a woman who desperately needed someone to finally take care of her heart. Life didn't magically become perfect. Aiden still faced challenges balancing parenting and entrepreneurship. Elara still fought her internal battles with stress and vulnerability. But now, neither of them faced their storms alone. One ordinary afternoon, as Aiden helped Elara onto a park bench when she felt a bit lightheaded from working too hard again, she gripped his hand and whispered, "You changed everything." He looked into her eyes no longer weighed down by pressure but lifted by possibility, and knew that she had changed everything for him too.